Okay. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Senate Finance, and to our guest. We are going to be not having bill hearings this afternoon. Yay, just a voting session. And so we're going to start first, I believe, with Patrick. So good afternoon.
So we'll be going through the list of bills where we have concurrences to consider. The first one is Senate Bill 184. This is on the blue sheet. This is the bill that prohibits health insurance carriers that provide coverage for diagnostic breast examination or supplemental breast examination from imposing a copayment, coinsurance, or deductible requirement for such examinations. And the House amendments to the Senate bill require the Healthcare Commission to study and report on the financial impact of eliminating health insurance cost sharing for diagnostic image guided biopsies for breast cancer and change the effective date of the bill. These amendments are actually the same as the amendments that this committee put on the House bill. So it would be to move to concur.
Okay, I have a motion and a second on the concurrence. Are there any questions? All those in favor, raise your hand. That passes unanimously.
Okay, I'm on. Okay, not the next bill on your list on the blue sheet is the third bill is Senate Bill 322. This is the bill that would allow a winery to have a food service establishments on their premises. The House amended the bill to look like the House bill, which you just voted on, to conform to the Senate bill as you sent over. So what you would want to do here, if you want to reject the House action on the Senate bill, is you would move to not concur and go to conference unless they recede.
Okay, I have a motion and a second not to concur on the amendments to Senate Bill 322. Are there any questions? All those in favor of not concurring, raise your hand. And that's unanimous. I love that you came in and like.
And you'll need,
I was just going to get a signature, but later.
Okay.
and you'll need some conferees on this one.
Okay, so we'll need some conferees on that one. We'll take Senator Beidle. Got to have Hayes because he came in with his hand in the air, and we'll go. Did we put Mounts on the other one? No, we'll put Mounts on there because he seconded the motion. So there it is. Congratulations, conferees.
Okay,
There'd be no one left.
okay. And the next one that has my name written next to it is Senate Bill 584. If you recall, this requires the Parkinson's Disease Registry and Advisory Committee to meet more often than it does, and it alters its duties and also requires a development and maintenance of a website. The House sent the bill back over largely the same. However, instead of monthly meetings, they're amending that to quarterly meetings. And they extended the reporting date on developing the process for getting in with the registry to July 1st, 2024 instead of 2023.
The sponsor, did you want to, are you okay with those?
Yeah.
Have a motion to concur, is there, and a second? Seeing no questions, all those in favor, raise your hand. Okay, we will concur. Next bill, thanks.
Next on the list for concurrence is Senate Bill 200, which authorizes the State Board of Chiropractic Examiners to deny a license to an applicant or take specified actions against a licensee, including suspending or revoking a license if the applicant or licensee fails to comply with any board order. The House amendments here are technical, aligning the Senate bill and the House bill.
Have a motion to concur. Senator Lamb, did you have a question?
A little bit more information about what technical pieces were.
So there were changes to the purpose paragraph to align the language. I believe that was to the purpose paragraph, and then there was one instance where the House struck any and substituted a. So it was a change in tense.
Okay, so I had a motion and a second on the concurrence. Any additional questions? All those in favor, raise your hand. And We unanimously concur.
And it looks like the final bill on the concurrence list is Senate Bill 377, which clarifies that certain workers' compensation benefits available to specified public sector employees are limited or offset only if the benefits are based in whole or in part on the same body part. The Finance Committee added a reporting requirement to the bill, and the House amendments state that rather than requiring the Joint Committee on Workers' Compensation Benefit and Insurance Oversight to produce a certain report, it is the intent of the General Assembly that the Maryland Association of Counties and the Professional Firefighters of Maryland work together on the report. These changes are necessary because the Joint Committee does not have the data or technical expertise necessary to complete the report. MACO and the firefighters have agreed to handle this instead.
That is the extent of it.
That is the extent of the amendments.
Second.
Okay, I had a motion and a second to concur with the House amendments. Seeing no questions, all those in favor, raise your hand. We unanimously concur with the House. Okay, that's it for the concurrence calendars. Thank you, three. We'll now go to the yellow calendar in front of you titled Voting List Number 28. We're going to start with Nathan.
And so the two bills at the bottom of the yellow voting list are the cross-filed bills, Senate Bill 906 and House Bill 622. Budget and tax is primary on these two bills and finance is second. B&T amended Senate Bill 906 to conform to House Bill 622, so the bills are now identical, and the votes on both bills in budget and tax were unanimous. So I'll describe Senate Bill 906 and the amendments as shown in the reprint. Senate Bill 906 establishes the Industry 4.0 Technology Grant Program and Fund in the Department of Commerce to assist small and medium-sized enterprise manufacturers in the purchase, implementation, and related employee training of Industry 4.0 technology and related infrastructure. So generally, Industry 4.0 technology means smart hardware, software, manufacturing technologies, and includes things like advanced sensor integration, robotics and autonomous equipment that collect data, enterprise resource planning and data analytics software, cloud computing and cybersecurity solutions, and infrastructure required to implement these technologies. So subject to specified requirements, including provisions of matching funds and competitive application process, an eligible company may receive a grant under the program of between $25,000 and $500,000. As amended from fiscal year 2025 through 2028, the governor must include an annual appropriation of $1 million to the associated fund in the budget. The amendments reduce the mandated annual appropriation from $10 million to $1 million, move the first year of the mandated appropriation back 1 year from 2024 to 2025, and reserves 20% of the funds available under the program for small and medium-sized manufacturers with 50 or fewer employees.
Vice Chair.
So this is the Senate version, or are they both the same at this point?
So I've described the Senate bill with the amendments that were adopted by Budget and Tax, which would align the bill with the House bill as passed by the
Okay.
House, which is then next on the voting list.
Okay, move favorable and
Have a motion and a second for a favorable on Senate Bill 906 as described. Don't see any additional questions, so all those in favor, raise your hand. That bill receives a unanimous favorable report,
And then the next bill is House Bill 622, which is identical to Senate Bill
and
906.
House
as
Bill
amended.
622.
move favorable.
Have a motion and a second for a favorable on that bill. Are there any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor, raise your hand. That bill also receives a unanimous favorable report. Thank you, Nathan.
Okay. House Bill 248 is a local bill that is the same as Senate Bill 347. It authorizes the Baltimore County Board of Licensed Commissioners to issue a Class B education, conference facility, dining, service, beer, wine, and liquor license to someone who is authorized by Towson University. It also makes conforming changes to specify that the provisions of this license apply to either UMBC, which already has this authority, or Towson University. The bill has a letter in support of, from the Baltimore County Senate delegation. House Bill 248.
Top of the list on your. So you have a motion and a second for a favorable on House Bill 248. I don't see any questions, so all those in favor of that motion, raise your hand. Okay, that bill receives a unanimous favorable report. Next bill.
Okay, the next bill on your list is House Bill 869. It requires the Maryland Department of the Environment, along with the Maryland Department of Health and the Maryland Department of Labor, to conduct a study on the impacts of death care and funeral practices on the environment and public health of the state. The following items must be assessed: the impact of casket and vault burial, mausoleum burial, casket only burial, natural or green burial, cremation, alkaline hydrolysis or water cremation, resumation or natural water cremation, and natural organic reduction.
Move favorable.
Have a motion and a second for a favorable on House Bill 869, Senator Lamb, and then Senator Vital.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. I was just looking at the bill itself. It's not very long, obviously, and I noticed that the effective date, or the date that the report is due back from MDE, is October 1st, 2024, which stretches it out beyond the next legislative sessions, after the next legislative session. My question, since we had another bill that I think the committee is familiar with on natural organic reduction, whether we can have that part of the report come back before the next session, so it can be actually a little more informative for how we deal with that bill. If we're not dealing with it this year, it's probably going to come back. So as not to push that part of the report on natural organic reduction passed into another session. Otherwise, the rest of it I think is fine, but natural organic reduction has, as you may recall from the other bill hearing, been implemented in other states. And so there's at least some other information out there with what other states have done, and maybe having that back a little bit sooner can be informative to that bill if it's not
Department of
passed
Environment
this year.
has to do the study.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I actually had this conversation with the sponsor of the other bill that you don't see on the voting list, and the same concerns are expressed. I did not have the opportunity since that time to talk with the Department of the Environment, who would be responsible for conducting the study. Don't know if when this bill was conceptualized, that was the reason for the timeline that was set out. So
It seemed like to
you're-
me that they were just working in parallel processes, and they may have been working independently.
yeah, I just don't have that
Yeah.
information, but Senator Hayes?
Yeah, I think they definitely was working independently, but also it doesn't appear to be anything in the bill that prevent them from reporting back earlier. It just say that they have to report by October 2024. It doesn't restrict them from reporting back any sooner. So I wonder if the same could be met. We have sent some strong letters this session. Maybe if a letter might
You set
help.
up a difference on the bill, but you and harsh, there's harsh.
Strongly worded.
Would that address your concern?
I mean, I guess, it's I guess a viable alternative. I mean, I think, we know how these reports are done by the departments. They don't usually send the report until it's actually due. And so I think that's why I was saying that if we actually make that part due sooner, we would get it sooner. Would they be responsive to a letter? Hopefully, but you think so? Well, I hope so. So, I'm just putting that out there. I think, it would be helpful to have that part of the report back sooner, just on that one piece for the bill.
So the way I hear you, Senator, there's two options. One, we could put a conceptual amendment, which would require that we hold this for another day and then create a difference with the House and potentially not end up moving this bill. Or we could do a letter we still have Thursday, Friday and months. So what's your pleasure? I'm hearing from others that. Okay, so if I'm hearing the committee's wishes, we would like to send a letter to the department asking that they report back on the one area of the bill that is considered in the House bill, Delegate Kaiser's bill, I don't remember the number.
1060.
1060, yeah, I should know that. And then we would not amend this bill and just pass the study language forward. Okay, I'll entertain a motion. Have-
We already did it.
Okay, we just did it again. Okay, without further questions, all those in favor, raise your hand. Okay, that bill receives a unanimous favorable report. We'll move to the next bill. That was it for David? Thank you.
House Bill 128, private passenger motor vehicle liability insurance, enhanced underinsured motorist coverage opt-out option. So this is the bill that was discussed yesterday, and I've got a reprint that the chair would like to offer, showing some amendments for consideration. Yes. So the reprint in front of you has some amendments. If you go to page 3, the language here would limit the opt-out selection process for EUIM coverage under the bill to new policies issued on or after July 1, 2024. So it would be limited to new policies. If you go on page 4, here's the amendment relating to the notice. This would require the waiver form to be displayed in 14-point boldface type instead of 10. And if you go to page 6 of the reprint, some additional amendments here further clarifies that the EUIM will continue to be opt-in on renewal policies on or after July 1st, 2024, but is opt-out on new policies on or after July 1st, 2024. There's some additional, on page 7, some conforming changes to reflect that some insureds are opting into EUIM coverage, the renewal policies, and that some are opting out, the new policies. And then here's the study language that we discussed yesterday. The amendment would push the sunset back an additional 2 years. I think we had it as 3 yesterday, and this would be 5 years. And it would modify the reporting dates of the study so that an interim report from MIA would be due at the end of 2026, and then a final report would be due at the end of 2028. And then this reprint leaves in place the applicability date in the bill as introduced, which is July 1st, 2024. So that yesterday it was considered whether to move that up to January, but this would leave in place what it is in the bill as introduced, that later implementation date.
Okay, you have in front of you a reprint with amendments to House Bill 128. Are there any questions? Senator Lamb.
Sure. So, I appreciate the reprint and some of the amendments here. I still have concerns about this bill. I think it's many of the similar concerns that my colleagues had voiced yesterday. But I think it's important to note that, when you really think about this, and I've been giving it some additional thought yesterday, that this really is a fee or a tax imposed on all Maryland drivers. That if we were to pass this forward, this is a tax on all Maryland drivers that would have to pay. I guess in this circumstance, it would be renewals, although I have some concerns about this too. And that the MIA letter says, it's on new policies, not on renewals, which I also have some concerns about. But the MIA letter had said that, the premiums could increase $50 to $100 per policy. And that's going to be borne by by the drivers of Maryland, right? This is a tax that's going to be imposed on the drivers of Maryland, not the renewals, but any new folks that are going to be driving. And my concern with the renewals is that we're actually carving out a large chunk of the driving public, which means that this tax, which is already regressive, is going to be imposed on a smaller population, potentially even driving the tax up to be even greater on those who will be subject to this tax. And so it really gives me a lot of concern when we're going down this pathway of, carving out the renewals. I get the issue there. I understand the concern and certainly bought into, the rationale that was brought up yesterday. But at the end of the day, this is a tax. This is a tax on Maryland drivers. This is a tax that will be imposed on almost everyone because everyone drives. And by removing the renewals, it's actually being borne by even a smaller population of people and will drive that tax up on them even more.
Thank you. Senator Bidle.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I appreciate the comments from my colleague. I think the fact that it's on the new business means that an agent will actually have to explain this form that's in 14 point. And people are they're gonna have to make the decision then, because it's going to be, the coverage is going to be on the policy, but they can make a decision to opt out. I don't disagree about the small number. I mean, that is a problem, but I just think this is a good alternative, and I could have never voted for it to be on everyone's renewal. I mean, to me, you don't just force coverage on someone. People get to make a decision whether they want coverage or not, but I can support it on new business. Thank you, Madam Chair, for the amendment.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Guile.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would just echo Senator Bidle's comments about it. I think that I wasn't a fan of this bill to begin with, but I do think that there's at least a bit of a balance here. I know that there were some pretty big differences between how much this was going to increase costs. I mean, we had the proponents of the bill that said it was just going to be a small amount, where the opponents were saying this is going to drive it up a lot. So at least by here, I mean, I understand that there may be a data problem, to Senator Lamb's point, perhaps, but maybe this is a balanced alternative. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Senator Reedy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I think the amendments are good. People will have to be offered this, and it's an affirmative. They'll have to, by doing it with new, you have a choice. So it's not automatic. And that, I think that you have to be offered you have to be offered the option that it's right, the opt out. So it's important. And we've got language. I was looking through it, the language on where does it address? I thought there was a part where it addresses the that it has to be very clear how you opt out, correct? Like you have to be given notification, like it's got something that
20.4.
20.5. But online as well, so they'll have that option. Yeah, no. I mean, look, I think there's the legit concern about it, but I think it's also important to note that people are paying for their insurance rates right now, and they're not getting their full coverage because they're finding out, oh, if I get hit by somebody who doesn't have insurance, I've been paying for this level of insurance for many years, and now I need it and I can't get it because I don't have, it's not stackable. So I've been covered for $100,000, and now somebody that was only covered for $30,000 has hit me. So I think there's arguments on kind of on both sides on that, but I do think the amendments are good for sure.
And if I can just add one thing, most claims are settled for less than 30,000 a person, most claims. So it doesn't really affect, it's a very small amount of the population that affects.
Hey, Senator Lamb.
Well, I mean, I understand the fact that, you would be able to opt out of this. But my concern is right now, opt-in is not working well at all. Right. And so what's that? It's like, to be frank, opt-in is not working well right now. Right. And that's why we have this problem. Right now, agents are supposed to present the option to opt in. That hasn't been working. And so now we're expecting agents to present the opt out option and expect that to work. have real concerns about that. So, I think the logic just isn't there for that piece. I think the other thing that MIA points out in their letter is that they did a review of 100 recent cases and they found 0 where the claimant's extended coverage would have resulted in an increased payout. So, they did a random sampling of 100 cases and they didn't find any where this would have helped. The circumstances where this would help is extremely rare. It's very rare for this to be needed. And so this is a tax on all drivers in Maryland on an occasion that's very extremely rare to actually occur. And that's why I'm going to be voting against this. I have a lot of real concerns about imposing this on all Maryland drivers. I think it's regressive in many ways, and I think it's, bad policy.
Thank you, Senator. So basically, I'll just take us back to a couple of things. One, the House passed this unanimously again, and we've put in a lot of time and a lot of work on this matter as a committee, understanding that we heard from people who supported the issue and people who opposed the issue. And some of the people who supported the issue and had some real live examples of people who were not able to stack policies and who found themselves not in the 100 that were surveyed by MIA, but in that group that would have benefited from having this. And so, as I've heard others say, the amendments that we have before us make the bill, put the bill in a posture where those folks that are renewing their coverage and may not interact with a agent either in person or over the phone, may just be paying a renewal, would not be sort of automatically signed up for this, but that they would, if they change policies, have the opportunity to interact with an agent, have this explained and they would have the option to sign a waiver or opt out. So the amendments put the bill in a posture that makes me more comfortable with the policy decision that we have before us, and puts it more similar to what I think I heard from the committee yesterday as concerns having been raised. So Senator Hershey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Do you know if the House is aware of the amendments that we're talking about? Take it or leave it. I love it. Thank you.
Hey, I see no additional questions. You have in front of you a reprint of House Bill 128. I'll entertain a motion. Have a motion and a second for a favorable on the reprint of House Bill 128 that you have in front of you with the amendments as discussed. Seeing no further questions, all those in favor, raise your hand. That is 10. Those opposed? I want you to turn on your camera for that. No, that's 1. So that bill passes 10-1. Thank you very much. And we have another bill, Patrick?
One more.
Okay, we have one more bill.
This is House Bill 1111, and it authorizes but does not require Baltimore County to honor certificates of guarantee issued by a nonprofit association of contractors or its wholly owned subsidiary in order to satisfy certain county bond requirements. And we do have a letter from the county Senate delegation in support of the bill. There are no amendments.
Have a motion and a second for a favorable on House Bill 1111. Seeing no questions, all those in favor, raise your hand. That bill receives a unanimous favorable report. That is the last bill that we have before us for vote today. We will likely have to get together again a couple more times for concurrences and bills that are coming back in a different posture than we sent them over. So stay tuned, but we're done for today. Thank you all very much. Enjoy your afternoon.